One, two, three. Right. I want to show you something that hedge funds, something very special that hedge funds can do that traditional long only funds can't do. And that is mitigate risk, eliminate risk, manage risk. Long only funds can traditionally get rid of risk using diversification, where one share offsets a little bit of the unique risk of another share. And you can do that to an extent, but eventually you run out of road and you still have the market risk inside every long only fund. But with hedge funds, what you can do is you can go long and short. You can go plus a share or you can go minus a share. And so there are a whole set of risks, of macro risks that you can get rid of and manage inside a hedge fund. And so let me show you some of these. Each column here represents a particular risk. And one of the biggest ones is market risk. Market risk is the risk that the market goes down for you. But perhaps you might have a preponderance of mining stocks, so you could be exposed to resources. Or perhaps you have some exposure to currency, exchange rate. Well, that can make a difference. And you can see here for Sasol here has got exposures to the US dollar, to the euro, and to the pound, varying exposures. Okay, this tells you that if the rand dollar, that's the 18 rand to the dollar, if that moves upwards, then that's good for Sasol. Okay, if you change that to Pick and Pay, oh my goodness, those exact same things work the other way around. Any increase in the exchange rate and Pick and Pay does worse. So these things are called betas. These are the exposures. So for example, let's go back to Sasol. I like that big beta of Sasol. If the market moves, then Sasol is going to move 71% more than the market. So this is a multiplier. If resources move upwards, then Sasol will move up 66% of that move in resources. So you can see it's pretty exposed to everything on the positive side, except to gold. Let's put in something else here. Let's put in FBR, famous brands. And oh my goodness, yeah, anything when the market goes up, they go down. Wow, that's quite amazing. When gold goes up, they go down. When any of these move up, they go down. You'll see that every share though is different. Look at Discovery. Suddenly it's got, a perfect market beta, 94% of the market. And it's got quite an exposure to property for some reason. That's very strange. What about a school? A school, like famous brands, negative, but it's got positive market betas. So you have the spreadsheet. Go and dig it out. It's called Mitigating Factor Risk in Hedge Funds, but it's called Dash, the student version. And you can go and plug in your own codes here and plot out these betas. But with hedge funds, first of all, you saw we went, in the previous video, we went and it created exposure to styles that we wanted exposure to. I wanted to be long momentum, long earnings yield, and long low volatility, and short in the opposite direction, the opposite direction of those styles. I do want those exposures, but at the same time, I don't want exposure to the market, and I don't want exposure to resources. I don't want exposure to currency. I don't want exposure to oil. I don't want exposure to anything other than I purposely want exposure to. So where are these betas coming from? Well, I've calculated them for you, and they live in this sheet called betas. They were calculated on the 31st of December because I don't want any look-ahead bias. And you can look across here, and all I'm doing is plotting each row for you. So when I choose Sasol, I was basically plotting that row for you. And you can see in green the big ones, and the red the very low ones. So what I really want to do is to see if I can get I don't mind having exposure, positive beta exposure, as long as I've got a negative beta exposure in another share to offset it. So here's a sheet that you don't have, and this is one that you're going to have to create yourself. This is where all the work is done. Don't panic. I've got a picture for you and some notes on the previous sheet, but this is what you're going to create. You're going to make a column of your longs, and you're going to make a column of your shorts. Okay, and it might look like this. I'll just delete it a bit. And what we're trying to do is to first add up all. Let's see if I'm going to run that macro. Here, create solver setup. That. Right, I just wanted to make all of these the same. 10,000 Rand. If you've got an exposure to Met Air, 10,000 Rand, what's your exposure to the market? Well, you had to put in 10,000 real rands, but your market exposure, because of the beta being only 0.46, is only 4,000. It's the sum of the product of those two. Where did the beta come from? Remind me. We V looked up into the beta sheet. So we V looked up MTA in the beta sheet in columns A to C, and we returned the third column. Okay, good old VLOOKUP. And then we multiplied it. So this yellow thing is the market. And you can do the same on the other side. And quite quickly, you'll see that if I add them up, I've got a short, I'm short 19,000 Rand against the market, and I'm long 32,000 against the market. Wow. So I'm actually net long. And you can see this because I've got an exposure table here where I'm adding those two up. And if that doesn't come to zero, if it's positive, it means that I'm net long the market. I'm a hedge fund. I don't want to be net long the market. I want no exposure. So I do the same thing. I do the same thing for resources. I do the same thing for Rand dollar and for Brent oil. And remember to do it on the other side. The market, for resources, exchange rate, and Brent oil. At the bottom here, I'm going to calculate, I'm going to add up all my exposures, so that's some of the purples. Got some other things I want to do. I want to make sure that I've got R1 million invested in my long portfolio. There I just typed in R1 million, and that cell is called nominal. Well, so far I've only got 40,000 in, so that's got to be increased. And at least it's offset by the minus 40,000 here, and that's why our cash flow is zero. Just while I'm here, I want to show you that that cell is called cash flow exposure, and the cell below it, market exposure and resources exposure and ZAR USD exposure, Brent oil exposure. And if you label things like that, and you label this last one, which is some variance, just like that, you'll be able to let a macro help you. Because there's a macro called create solver setup. It'll go and do a whole bunch of setups for you, so you won't have to go and manually set it up every time. So I've just copied out some of the code here just to remind myself of those cells that need to be labeled. So it's those 6 there, plus the nominal, and then there's the sum variance at the bottom. Let's talk about that sum variance. I'm calculating the variance of my longs, which is currently 0, and the variance of my shorts, which is currently 0, because they're all the same. And then I'm adding them up to get the sum of the variance. Why am I bothering about variance? Well, I'm going to ask Solver if it can please make all these exposures. I want all those exposures to be 0. And Solver says, I can do it, but you've got to give me some leeway. And I say to Solver, fine, you must do it, but I'll allow you to change those 10,000 rands and the minus 10,000 rands. That's what you're allowed to change. That's what can give. Solver says, fine, I'll do it. So I need to go and put some more shares in. Didn't I choose like 22 shares long? So back I go to my first spreadsheet. This is the good old style slicer. I'm using the combination style. I like that better. And I'm going to take I just chose 22 shares They're the 22 shares that have the most momentum, earnings yield, and low volatility. Control C that. And I'm just going to go paste values. While I'm here, copy this down, and while I'm over here, I must remember to get the shorts. Where are the shorts? In my shorts. Copy my shorts in, and I'm pasting my shorts in. Remember to copy the formulas down. And because I've got everything labeled correctly, let me show you manually. I'm going to go Alt-A, Y2 to run solver. It pops up with this dialog box. And the very first thing it says, what's your objective? My objective, while I've got some actual constraints, my objective is to minimize the sum of variance. So not max, I'm going to minimize my sum variance. That's the named range. Solver says, well, what am I allowed to change? And I'm allowed to change these guys. Oh, this is all wrong. Oh, that's all wrong. It needs to be copied down. Okay, we'll sort that out just now. How do we know that these are the longs? Well, I'm going to tell it that anything in B, B4 to B7 must be greater than 0, and anything in M must be less than or equal to 0. That makes them shorts. Then I'm going to tell it that I want cash, market, resources, all of these things. Where's it? Cash, market, resources, ZAR, and Brent, all of those cells must be equal to 0. And finally, I'm going to tell it that this nominal must equal my sum, and must be another one here. My long exposure is that cell B32, the 220,000. That must equal 1 million. And as a bonus trick, I must tell you, please uncheck this little box. We don't want to make unconstrained variables non-negative. So before we run, because I can see that this is wrong, I don't know it's wrong, because look, I haven't highlighted all that green stuff. I'm going to show you some magic. If I press Alt F8 and run that macro, just press enter, nothing seemed to happen. But when I bring up the dialog box again, you're going to see, wow, it has correctly gone and selected those ranges, not only in the changing cells, but also in my constraints. Right, I'm feeling brave. Are you feeling brave? This is where you're going to press the solve button. Please work, please work, please work. And down the bottom left, you'll see it trying 11, 12, many times. This can't possibly work. It did. Solver found the solution. Keep it. Yes, please. Keep it. Did it really work? I'm going to go and check. Wait, did it work? Are all these actually 0? They are. Is this 1 million? It is. That's amazing. This is done. Oh, but what's the sum variance? That's a big number. I'm very scared of that number. Don't worry. Don't panic. It's just a sum variance. It's as small as it can go. So let's see, has solver, let's plot these. Let's highlight these, and press F11. So here we have the long, these are the long exposures, and you can see they were perfectly equally weighted like we had in our back testing, but now they are not equally weighted. Some have gone to 0 and some are sitting at 80,000. So that's what we've had to give, okay? But they're still around about 40 or 50,000. That's good. Let's just check out our shorts. Our shorts are all negative, so they should hang from the top, which they do. And it's got Discam and Rainbow Chickens and Steinhoff. I want to short Steinhoff. Okay, and look, that one's quite large. What's that? Sun International wants to short that. I suppose no one's going on holiday anymore. Okay, so we've got our shorts. So we haven't got our hedge fund yet, but our first attempt, our style slicing, gave us our names. And our risk mitigation has given us our RAND exposures. So in our next session, we will going to take those shares with that exposure and those shorts with that exposure and put them together in our hedge fund, and we're going to run it from the 31st of December 2019. We're going to run it up until the present day, and we're going to see we've got what's known as an ex ante This is what we think our exposure is going to be before the event. We think it's going to be 0, and we're going to hope that our ex-post exposure, that's the actual exposure we get, we're going to hope and we'll see how close it is to 0 in reality. And at the same time, we're going to see whether our styles of momentum and earnings yield and low volatility, long, and our shorts versus, and including our shorts of low momentum and low earnings yield and high volatility. We're going to see if that style that we've definitely got exposure to, whether that has created alpha for us. This is the essence of a hedged fund. Right, until next time, thank you.